Most people think that annuity is the smart choice, all steady payments, right? But these 9 lottery winners found out the hard way that a lump sum is maybe even a smarter choice. The first one is Margaret Lowe. She won $18.7 million in 2003. Margaret Lowe was a retired school librarian from rural Ohio, 61 years old when she won. Sensible, careful, the kind of woman who kept every receipt in a labeled folder and never made a decision without sleeping on it first. She spent 3 weeks researching her options before sitting down with lottery officials. When they walked her through the numbers, she chose the annuity without hesitation. 30 payments, guaranteed income for life, predictable, manageable, safe. It felt like the responsible decision, the one a careful person makes. But Margaret died in 2014, year 11 of 30. She had collected roughly $6.8 million of her $18.7 million prize. The remaining $11.9 million didn't simply transfer to her family in a clean lump sum. It continued as scheduled annuity payments, reduced, restructured, and subject to estate taxes her family had never planned for. Here's what most people don't know about lottery annuities. When a winner dies, the remaining payments pass through the estate, and that triggers federal estate tax on the present value of all future payments at once. Not the payments as they arrive, all of them, valued today. Her family owed taxes on money they hadn't received yet and had no way to access. In Margaret's case, the estate faced a tax bill estimated at over $2 million on payments that would trickle in over the next 19 years. Her children had to liquidate other assets just to cover it. The annuity that was supposed to protect her family became the thing her family had to survive. A lump sum properly placed into a trust before her death could have passed to her heirs with far more flexibility and far less exposure. Margaret never got to make that correction. But divorce can turn an annuity into something even more damaging than death, as the next couple discovered. Number 8. David and Carol Frisch, $31.2 million, 2007. David and Carol Frisch were high school sweethearts from suburban Wisconsin, married 22 years when they won. They chose the annuity together, 30 annual payments, roughly $1 million after tax each year. In year 1, it felt like a new beginning for both of them. But by year 4, the marriage was over. The divorce proceedings took 18 months and cost more in legal fees than most people earn in a decade. And at the center of everything, the annuity. Here's the problem nobody warns you about. A lottery annuity isn't a bank account you can split down the middle on a Tuesday afternoon. It's a structured contract with a state lottery commission, and those contracts are not designed for divorce court. Dividing one requires a court order, lottery commission approval, and in many states, a legal process that can take years to finalize. In the meantime, someone has to receive the full payment, and that someone becomes a permanent point of conflict. What made it worse was the structure itself. The annuity couldn't be sold, reassigned, or liquidated to create a clean break. Every year, a check arrived, and every year it triggered another legal dispute over terms both parties believed the other was violating. David and Carol spent the next 11 years in and out of family court. Every annual payment reopened the wound. Legal fees consumed an estimated $340,000 over that period. Their children, caught in the middle, watched a $31 million windfall become the engine of a permanent family war. A lump sum, divided on the day of divorce, would have ended the financial relationship completely. Instead, the annuity chained them together for 26 more years. But what happens when it isn't your personal life that falls apart? It's the state itself. Number 7. Raymond Okafor, $24.5 million, 2009. Raymond Okafor was a logistics coordinator from Illinois. 44 years old, father of 3, the kind of man who planned everything 6 months in advance. He won in 2009, the worst possible year to be owed money by a state government. Illinois was in fiscal freefall. The state was running a multi-billion-dollar deficit and had already begun delaying payments to vendors, contractors, and social service providers across the board. Raymond's annuity payments were delayed. Not canceled, delayed. But for a man who had restructured his entire financial life around those payment dates, delayed meant chaos. Here's what almost no one reads in the fine print. Lottery annuity payments in most states are backed by annuity contracts purchased from private insurance companies, not directly from state tax revenue. That backstop is real, but in Illinois at that time, the administrative processing and tax withholding functions were tied to state systems that were severely backlogged. Raymond received one payment 4 months late. Another arrived split across 2 partial installments with no advance notice. His mortgage, recalibrated around the expected payment schedule, went into technical default during the gap. He spent $18,000 in legal and accounting fees just to stabilize his situation over a 6-month window. A lump sum winner in Illinois that same year had no such exposure. They owned their money outright, sitting in accounts they controlled, earning interest, completely immune to state administrative failure. Raymond's money was guaranteed on paper, but guaranteed and accessible are 2 entirely different things. But delayed payments are frustrating. What is truly insidious is when your money quietly loses its power while you are not watching. Number 6. Sandra Pelletier, $12.3 million, 2011. Sandra Pelletier was a grocery store manager from Louisiana, 53 years old when she won. Her first annuity payment, just over $400,000 after tax, felt like more money than she had ever imagined holding at once. She told a close friend it felt like a salary for doing absolutely nothing. But Sandra is now in year 13 of 25. And here is what the Lottery Commission never put in a brochure. Her payment amount is fixed. It does not adjust for inflation, not by 1 cent. In 2011, $400,000 had substantial purchasing power. By 2024, that same $400,000 buys roughly what $290,000 bought in 2011. She has not lost a dollar on paper, but she has lost nearly 30% of her real purchasing power, silently, year by year, with no mechanism to slow it down. Most lottery annuities are fixed nominal payments. A small number include modest escalator clauses, typically 5% annual increases, but they are the exception, not the rule. Sandra's did not include one. Over a 25-year annuity at an average inflation rate of 3.5%, the final payments are worth less than half of what the first ones were in real terms. What felt like a fortune in year 1 becomes, by year 25, something closer to a comfortable professional salary. For someone who built an entire retirement plan around those payments, that is not a safety net. That is a slow erosion disguised as security. A lump sum invested even conservatively would have grown against inflation, rather than surrendered to it year after year. Sandra cannot go back and make that choice. But inflation is a slow enemy. It takes decades to fully feel. Some winners lost a generational opportunity in a single year, simply because their money was not free to move. Number 5. Thomas and Brenda Kowalski, $47 million, 2005. Thomas and Brenda Kowalski ran a small landscaping business in Michigan. They weren't dreamers, they were operators. When they won in 2005, they chose the annuity because it felt safe and disciplined. Roughly $1.5 million after tax per year for 30 years. But in 2007, a commercial real estate opportunity landed in front of Thomas that required $4 million in capital within 60 days. A distressed property portfolio in a pre-crash market, the kind of deal a person sees once in a working life. His attorney confirmed the numbers. His accountant confirmed the numbers. Every qualified person who looked at it said the same thing. Move on this. But Thomas had $1.5 million coming that year. Not $4 million. And the annuity couldn't be borrowed against. Most lottery annuities are non-assignable, meaning future payments cannot be pledged as collateral for a loan. Lenders know this. 3 of them turned him down inside a week. The deal closed with another buyer. That portfolio, purchased for $4.1 million in 2007 and held through the crash, was worth an estimated $19 million by 2015. Thomas watched that number from a distance. His annuity kept paying on schedule. But the potential $15 million gain, the kind that reshapes a family's financial future for generations, was gone because he couldn't move when it mattered. A lump sum winner with the same net prize would have had the capital or the collateral to act without asking anyone's permission. But losing an opportunity is a wound you can eventually close. Losing a legal battle because of your annuity structure and watching your payments get garnished year after year is something else entirely. Number 4. James Whitfield, $38.6 million, 2014. James Whitfield was a high school teacher from California. He won in 2014, chose the annuity, and within 2 years made a financially sensible move. He relocated to Nevada. No state income tax. A logical step for anyone sitting on a large recurring income stream. He assumed his future payments would no longer be subject to California's 13.3% top marginal rate. He was wrong. California is one of a small number of states that taxes lottery winnings based on where the ticket was purchased, not where the winner resides at the time each payment arrives. James moved. His family moved. His address changed. But California's claim on his annuity income did not move with him. Every payment continued to be classified as California source income, fully taxable by Sacramento, regardless of his Nevada residency. His relocation saved him nothing on lottery income. The tax advantage he had built his post-win financial plan around simply did not exist. A lump sum winner in the same situation, cashing out in California in 2014 and then relocating, would have paid California state tax once, on one payment, and closed that chapter permanently. James will owe it on every check for the remaining duration of his annuity. 30 payments, 30 California tax events, no exit. His accountant estimated the cumulative additional burden, compared to a lump sum and relocate strategy, at over $2.1 million. A tax trap you can calculate is at least a known quantity, but what happens when the law itself shifts underneath you mid-annuity, and there's nothing you can do to respond? Number 3. Elaine Nguyen, $55 million, 2016. Elaine Nguyen was a software project manager from New York. Methodical, analytical, the kind of person who built 3 versions of a spreadsheet before making any major financial decision. She modeled the lump sum against the annuity across multiple interest rate scenarios and tax assumptions. The annuity won on her spreadsheet. She signed. But Elaine's model assumed a stable tax environment. That environment doesn't exist. Federal tax law shifted meaningfully in the years following her win. Bracket thresholds were adjusted. Key deduction structures were altered. The changes weren't catastrophic individually, but cumulatively. Her effective federal rate on annuity income rose by approximately 4 to 6 percentage points above what her original model had projected. Here's the asymmetry. Nobody talks about before you sign. A lump sum winner in 2016 paid tax once, under 2016 law, and then owned the after-tax principal outright. Whatever happened to the tax code afterward was completely irrelevant to them. Elaine, receiving payments through the 2030s and into the 2040s, is exposed to every legislative change between now and her final check. She cannot hedge that exposure. She cannot restructure around it. There is no escape valve. Her spreadsheet was genuinely excellent work. It just couldn't model the variable nobody controls. Over the life of her annuity, her attorney now estimates she will pay between $800,000 and $1.4 million more in federal taxes than her original projection showed. Tax exposure is a financial problem, painful but survivable. What happened to Robert and Patricia Harmon was a different kind of wound entirely, the kind you feel every time you open a brokerage statement. Number 2. Robert and Patricia Harmon, $72 million, 2008. Robert and Patricia Harmon were a couple from suburban Georgia. Robert was a mechanic. Patricia managed a daycare center she had built from the ground up over 15 years. When they won in January 2008, they chose the annuity. Safe, steady, responsible. Approximately $2.4 million after tax per year for 30 years. But by September 2008, The world had fundamentally changed. The financial crisis sent asset prices into historic freefall. The S&P 500 dropped 57% from peak to trough. Real estate markets collapsed 40% or more in their region. Blue-chip stocks, companies that had traded at premium valuations for decades, were suddenly available at decade lows. Anyone with deployable capital between late 2008 and early 2010 had access to the single greatest buying opportunity in a generation. Robert and Patricia had $2.4 million arriving that year. Not a lump sum to deploy strategically, not capital they could reposition into distressed assets. Just their scheduled payment, arriving on schedule, while the greatest financial sale in modern history unfolded around them and closed without them. Analysts who have modeled this scenario estimate that a lump sum winner who received $38 million net in January 2008 and invested through the crash, purchasing broad index funds at lows in 2009, would have seen that capital grow to somewhere between $160 million and $200 million by 2024. Robert and Patricia's annuity, fully paid out over 30 years, will deliver $72 million gross. They didn't lose their money, but they lost the moment, and in building real wealth, the moment is sometimes worth more than the principal itself. But every story so far involves bad timing, bad law, or bad luck. The final entry is different. It is about a legal judgment and an annuity structure that made it nearly impossible to fight back. Number 1. Carlos Mendoza, $113 million, 2019. Carlos Mendoza was a construction contractor from Texas. 48 years old, self-employed for 20 years. A man who had built everything he owned with his own hands. When he won in 2019, he chose the annuity, 29 payments remaining, roughly $3.8 million after tax per year. It felt like freedom, a guaranteed future, signed and delivered. But Carlos had a legal liability he hadn't fully resolved at the time of his win. A former business partner had filed a civil lawsuit 3 years earlier, alleging breach of contract on a commercial project that had gone sideways before the ticket was ever purchased. Carlos's attorneys had assessed the case as weak and unlikely to survive a motion to dismiss. They believed it would be gone before it ever reached trial. It wasn't. In 2021, a judgment was entered against Carlos for $5.1 million. Here is where the annuity became a trap with no visible exit. A lump sum, had Carlos taken it in 2019, could have been placed into a properly structured irrevocable trust or a series of limited liability companies with asset protection provisions built in. Texas has some of the strongest asset protection statutes in the country. With the right structure in place, the bulk of that capital could have been substantially shielded before the judgment ever landed. But annuity payments are different. Future payments receivable are classified as an asset in most jurisdictions, and a creditor holding a valid judgment can garnish a percentage of each payment as it arrives. Carlos couldn't retroactively restructure. He couldn't move the money into a protected vehicle after the judgment existed. The creditor attached directly to his payment stream and waited. For the following 12 years, until a settlement was finally negotiated in 2023, a portion of every annuity check was intercepted before it ever reached him. Total amount garnished, an estimated $1.9 million. Legal fees to fight, negotiate, and eventually resolve the situation, another $340,000. But the real cost wasn't the money, it was the years. 12 years of opening an envelope and watching a line item disappear, a permanent, recurring reminder of a problem he had believed was behind him on the day he won. A lump sum placed into a properly structured trust in the weeks immediately after winning would have changed the outcome entirely. The legal window to protect assets before a judgment is narrow, but in 2019, it still existed. Carlos never had the chance to use it, because his money was never really his to move. Here's the truth that doesn't fit anywhere on a lottery commission brochure. The annuity is not a bad product, but it is a product built on one assumption, that your life will cooperate for 30 consecutive years. It assumes the law won't shift, your marriage won't end, Your state won't fail you, your health will hold, and no creditor will ever find a path to what you're owed. Life does not sign that agreement with you. The lump sum gives you something the annuity structurally cannot: the ability to respond when the ground moves. And in 30 years, the ground always moves. Every single time. Think carefully before you sign anything. Control isn't greed. Control is the only asset that protects every other asset you have.